The Variable is more than a podcast. We're a creative community and movement spreading the belief that we all have the power to make an impact in each other's lives through positive connection, mentorship, and encouragement. Ready to make an impact? Join our online community. Share what you know on our show. Join our Q&A segments. Submit an article at thevariable.design and invite your fellow creatives to contribute. Let's be more than passive subscribers. It's time we decide to be the good in our community. We are the Variable. The Variable is more than a podcast. We're a creative community and movement spreading the belief that we all have the power to make an impact in each other's lives through positive connection, mentorship, and encouragement. Ready to make an impact? Join our online community. Share what you know on our show. Join our Q&A segments. Submit an article at thevariable.design and invite your fellow creatives to contribute. Let's be more than passive subscribers. It's time we decide to be the good in our community. We are the Variable. The Variable is more than a podcast. We're a creative community and movement spreading the belief that we all have the power to make an impact in each other's lives through positive connection, mentorship, and encouragement. Ready to make an impact? Join our online community. Share what you know on our show. Join our Q&A segments. Submit an article at thevariable.design and invite your fellow creatives to contribute. Let's be more than passive subscribers. It's time we decide to be the good in our community. We are the Variable. The Variable is more than a podcast. We're a creative community and movement spreading the belief that we all have the power to make an impact in each other's lives through positive connection, mentorship, and encouragement. Ready to make an impact? Join our online community. Share what you know on our show. Join our Q&A segments. Submit an article at thevariable.design and invite your fellow creatives to contribute. Let's be more than passive subscribers. It's time we decide to be the good in our community. We are the Variable. The Variable is more than a podcast. We're a creative community and movement spreading the belief that we all have the power to make an impact in each other's lives through positive connection, mentorship, and encouragement. Ready to make an impact? Join our online community. Share what you know on our show. Join our Q&A segments. Submit an article at thevariable.design and invite your fellow creatives to contribute. Let's be more than passive subscribers. It's time we decide to be the good in our community. We are the Variable. Hey guys, how's it going? I have a quick bit of advice for you guys that might be hard for some of you to hear. Stop 3D printing crap. Full disclosure, I 3D print stuff all the time for my clients. 3D printers are great, but they are not the solution for every single thing. Every single prototype that you're creating needs to be addressing some kind of a question. So at the very beginning, when you're prototyping something, if you just need to know scale and how it feels in your hand and something like that, why on earth would you invest hours and hours in CAD and then spend all night waiting for a print to come off the printer just to hold it and figure out, oh, it's too big. Take a sketch, an orthographic that you've done, print it out at sometimes different scales to see, glue that sucker onto a piece of cardboard and cut it out with an X-Acto knife and hold it in your hand and look at it. That's the fastest way to indicate size and scale without making a large investment of time. Efficiency is so key. Your time is valuable. It really is. And if you don't think it is, then you need to reevaluate your life, because your time is important. Just recently, I saw a post on Twitter from our recent guest, Michael DeTullo, showed an example of a prototype that he had made on a product in the early stages. It was a folded up piece of paper, folded up Post-it note. That's fantastic. It addressed the question that he had at hand, and eventually he worked up to higher fidelity models. So when we're talking about prototyping, especially rapid prototyping, I want you guys to erase that preconceived notion that you've got in your head that rapid prototyping means CAD and means 3D printing. It doesn't always mean that. It's a fantastic solution. Don't get me wrong. I love 3D printing, but there's no shame in whipping out some foam core and clay and foam and doing anything else aside from 3D printing. It's all dependent on what you're trying to figure out and what you're trying to learn. So, food for thought for all of you guys. Stick around after this quick commercial break. We're going to introduce today's guest speaker. Don't go anywhere.
I thought that if I could learn how to draw anything, then I could communicate anything. And if I could communicate anything, then I could design anything. Sketching is really the best way for me to get an idea that's just locked away in my mind into yours. I never wanted my ability to communicate an idea to be a barrier to the types of ideas I had. One of my favorite quotes about design is all design is a little bit of logic, a little bit of taste, and the will to collaborate. I can do this and you can draw on top of it and do a riff and an iteration. It doesn't have to be my idea. It doesn't have to even be 100% my vision. It just has to be the best thing that we can possibly make. A rendering or a CAD drawing, that is a statement, but a sketch is a conversation. It literally just takes dedication.
Hello everybody, welcome back. It's the moment you've all been waiting for. Allow me to introduce today's guest on The Variable, Brett Lovelady. Brett is the founder of ASTRO Studios in San Francisco, California. ASTRO is a team of innovation experts and designers of consumer brands and products that inspire markets and strive to improve the human experience. Brett founded ASTRO Studios in 1994 to blend the value of design with technology and cultural insights, producing a wide range of iconic brands and products for clients like Nike, HP, Western Digital, Logitech, P&G, Shinola, Xbox, Vive, and many more worldwide. Brett is recognized as one of America's top design leaders, advocating for design and directing some of the world's most culturally relevant programs, while helping clients generate billions in revenue worldwide. ASTRO and Brett have worked on hundreds of products and brands from Fortune 100 clients to startups, receiving a range of industry recognitions, including Fast Company's Most Innovative Companies in Design, 2 Business Week Design of the Decade Awards, and 9 nominations for Cooper Hewitt National Design Award. Brett has also co-created and launched his own brands, most notably ASTRO Gaming, now part of Logitech's family of brands. Recently, ASTRO joined forces with London-based PA Consulting, a world leader in innovation and commercialization. Congratulations on that, and thank you for joining us on The Variable today, Brett. We're glad to have you with us.
Thanks, Russ. Nice to be here. Nice to be back in the studio.
Yeah. I tell you what, Brett, as I was getting ready to put this whole thing together, I was really excited because you've been on a lot of these things, and that's exciting. And then as soon as you accepted my offer, then it was a little daunting because you've been on a lot of these things, and you've answered a lot of questions back in your day, throughout time as you've gone through your career. So when I came down to it, I wanted to focus on a few different directions that I think will be really helpful for our listeners. And if I were going to sum up, what are my main topics that I'd like to address? 1, getting in. 2, moving up. And we'll keep it G-rated and say kicking tail. So, so to get the ball rolling then, Brett, I want you to tell us, then versus now, what has changed well, maybe we just simplify it. When you graduated from university and you were first getting into the design space, how did you get your first job? What did it take for you to get in?
All right. Well, thanks, Russ. Now that you've established that I'm really old, I really appreciate that. Yeah, I've been around for a little while, and seen a lot of design come and go. I was really fortunate, to come out of a small program where we got a lot of attention at the time, and we had nothing to lose but kind of just make connections and do our best. So I was fortunate to get a nice internship with a little company called IBM. Went to Florida, figured out what design work was about, and then I realized it's about networking, it's about salesmanship, it's about not only just coming up with a big idea and representing, but also communicating it and getting it out in the world and networking and connecting with folks. So I was really fortunate there. Sort of bounced that into technology path to Silicon Valley, mainly to pay off school loans and connect with some other designers. That was the beginning of a fun journey here.
Yeah. Okay. So you bring up something that I feel super strongly about, and clearly is truth because it's coming from your mouth too. We just did a student spotlight live broadcast yesterday, and during it, I talked about the value and power of networking. And as you were getting into the space, I know that ASTRO was founded in '94. So prior to that, you were graduating and just getting into it. So the world of social media and sending out email blasts to everybody was non-existent. So you had a different approach to how students need to do it now. But I think at its core, you're onto something in the sense that it's all about making connections with people more than it is about filling on online forms for filling out job applications on forums online. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to do great work, and then you got to figure out how to share it with people. And, back in the olden days, at the dawn of the internet, right. We had to use things like mail and phone calls and networking and parties and, knocking on doors and standing out front of buildings if you needed to get some attention.
Sure.
That's, changed a little bit. And, but part of it still comes down to the work. You just got to figure out how to get it in the right people's hands. And then a little bit of luck, timing, learn nothing else in, sitting here in San Francisco Bay Area, timing is possibly everything.
Yeah. I was going to tell you, I was going to, hop on my soapbox with that too. I think that, coincidentally, timing of discussing this is pretty good right now, considering there's a number of students that have just graduated from university. They're trying to get out and make waves in the industry and get their foot in the door. Timing has a lot to do with, there being availability for jobs and for you to successfully get one. So if at some point, or right now, if you're not getting any luck, you're not seeing any success as far as getting interviews and getting in the door, it doesn't necessarily mean, your portfolio could be terrible, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your portfolio is terrible, because timing really is a big element of things. So keep at it for sure. I agree. I don't know if you were to have a message to the new graduating class, Brett, regarding finding your first gig, what would that be?
There's a couple. One is, perfect your craft and be able to quickly share it. You mentioned what it was, years and years ago, but now obviously it is, digital and speed of light, sharing links
Yeah.
and connections and exposing yourself to as many avenues as possible. Don't be afraid to build your brand. One thing that a lot of designers, do is they're sort of like, well, let the work speak for me. I'm too humble. I'm too introverted. I'm not excited about, kind of like spreading my name around.
Mm-hmm.
You got to change that, especially in the last
Yeah,
year.
don't do that.
Unprecedented, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like you're just not getting the same exposure, so you've got to amp it up a bit.
Yeah.
And so I highly recommend get your act together and then share it, right? Get your tools, get your point of view and your work available, refresh it, keep it fresh, keep it relevant. But don't be afraid to promote yourself and sell. Doesn't mean it's always going to work. Again,
Yeah.
like I said, timing and connections, like we see amazing work, but if we don't have, an open spot or a need at the
Then
moment,
yeah.
it's hard to say like, it's any reason, but it's a business reason. We couldn't make something happen quickly, but we do keep track of people. And
Yeah.
part of that is reconnecting, like, oh, didn't they have a cool link or a good portfolio? Or I remember this guy, dig him up again, so that happens more now than ever, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Do that. And then I guess one other thought that as I was prepping for this live broadcast here, came to mind was the if you find yourself having a hard time getting your foot in the door, there's a number of different factors, but one of them that can help, I know from personal experience, is if you find yourself kicking around the same old school projects that you've been doing over and over and over, oh, I took this one that I did, let me reskin it, make it look better. That helps. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes what it takes is for you to say, Kate, I'm done with that. I'm going to do something new. I'm going to do a new project. And sometimes it's those weekend warrior quick projects that you put together while you were in the flow of things, becomes a statement piece in your portfolio. So if you find yourself stuck in a rut, cut ties with what you've been doing and shift over and do something new. And sometimes that's like the fresh coat of paint that you need on your portfolio to take it up in the next level. You think? I mean, yeah, good advice.
I mean, I think designers are really great critics of their own work. And, if you see something you're not proud of, you're not happy with, it needs a fresh coat of paint, like you said, go for it. The other thing though is, if you figure out where you really want to work, what kind of industry or, what sort of, problem you want to solve, dive in there, right? Like, your portfolio isn't the end of your collection of work. It's the beginning. And so find something and target, right? Like you want to go into apparel, do something in apparel. You want to go to shoes, do that. You want to solve water problem, have a project in there that you've been thinking about.
That does that. Yeah, that's great. This might seem like an odd one, but a question that came to mind when I was prepping was, can you tell us of some odd things that applicants may have done that have backfired when they tried to interact with you?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting one.
Because I can only imagine you guys are a reputable studio. I know when I was in school, we all were looking at stuff. We subscribed to your mailers. I remember getting it in the mail and being excited and looking up stuff and talking about Astro amongst my colleagues. And so I know you've got to get lots of applicants who are like, hey, I'd like to work for your studio. Have you had any weird super fans that like did something that was like odd, that rubbed you the wrong way? And you're like, definitely don't do this if you want to get a good job at Astro.
I think we're pretty tolerant, and we actually kind of enjoy. It's sometimes entertaining just to see how creative people can be to like,
sure,
get our attention. We've had people, crash the door, so to speak, and, come into the studio and, I'm here now. I need an interview. Can you tour me around? I got to show somebody my stuff before I get on a plane, right? There's always that sense of urgency. And those became sort of typical, quite honestly.
Really?
We get a lot of packages that are sent that are, way more than a portfolio, something they worked on, or, a package in a creative way. Honestly, a lot of those, there's so much time and effort and they look awesome in some cases, but other ones are like, man, is that like a mail bomb or something? Or, like we shouldn't even open that, like take it out to the alley before we do it. Those are a
Before you
little
open it.
unnerving, at times.
Yeah.
But the physicality of that, and people showing up and stuff is always a little uninvited. Is always a little bit, I don't know, off-putting, I guess maybe.
Sure.
But
Sure.
as soon as I say that, there's once in a while a gem falls out, and you're like, wow, look at this kid's portfolio. He's just here from Europe or Asia or down the street, but like he's, someone had a moment, checked him out, and it's like, that was almost worth all the other
odd birds that have crashed in.
other one. Oh, before I forget though, don't do a personal like video that's sort of half comedy, half project portfolio, and tell us all about our studio. That one, I've had a few of those, and it's like, it's just it just comes off as
You already, yeah, about your studio. Obviously,
a little bit.
And so, okay, well, that's a good piece of it. So
take your time on that. Let's do something else too.
Yeah. Well, I think the point being that we can get a little zealous, and we try and make connections almost in a desperate way to try and make an impression, be memorable. And that was kind of one of the pieces of advice that I gave people. Is like, don't go crazy with it, guys. Be professional. I think that, really, I'll give you credit and brag on you a little bit. Your accessibility, because I've been in touch with you over the years, random emails back and forth, and I've always gotten a reply, which is more than I can say for other CEOs of companies that are, I mean, everybody's busy. And I know that I've always appreciated the time that you've been willing to make yourself accessible and answer questions and so forth. So kudos to you for that. Okay.
I mean, your mom called me a long time ago and look out for us. No.
That's awesome. Okay, so if I were going to move, so the next segment that I want to talk with you about, we're talking about moving up. So say we get in the door, the advice that we've got. So we made it in the door. I listened to a few different podcasts that you were featured on. You at the very, very beginning, you worked at a few different firms, IDEO. I know that you were at Frog and others. Relatively quickly, as I understood, you made it up the ranks and you were VP design.
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, right? Okay. So what would you say was instrumental in you making that rapid climb up the ladder in hitting that position within the companies that you were working at?
Well, thanks. Let me make one little adjustment. It was actually Lunar Design, not IDEO.
Okay.
Because my Lunar friends would, give me some grief. Lunar was awesome. So Lunar and Frog, honestly, showing up there is at a time in my career where I was still like a lot of other designers, perfecting the craft, right? Like exposing myself to, like, what does it take to get great ideas into the marketplace? And a big part of that was you've got to be able to communicate authentically and hang out with clients and get them to believe in the work that you're producing. And so, fortunately, I guess, I learned to talk at an early age, and it was part of being in the studio. They're like, oh, sure, you can handle this client, you can sell them on this, you can move it forward. And then I think we're really identifying and working with other talented people. Right? It's a collaborative, opportunity. And so moving up was perfect your craft, get good at what you do. These days, that's a little bit even wider range, from all things ID and all the technologies, and maybe understand what it is you're really good at and magnify that early on in your career, and then keep adding new tools to the toolbox. That's super important because you'll get called into more projects that way. But then when you're in those programs, practice your presentations, practice your vocal skills, your salesmanship. Yeah. And most designers, like, you say sales of any sort, and they're like, that's a horrible word. So, promote it, communicate it, get people amped up and excited about the work that you're excited about.
You have to have a little charisma,
It's part of it, because you're trying to talk people into spending, tens of millions of dollars sometimes to produce something you came up with. And they want to know that you're really into it, and, your idea has, some passion behind it. You may still have to prove it out. It could be a wild card. That helps, because then the owners of the company, like at Lunar and at Frog, they recognize that, and they're like, oh man, I got somebody that can handle a major client or two while I'm handling another
A
major
closer.
client, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Someone who can deliver.
Duh. Okay. Well, I think that's interesting because, of course, you talk about perfecting your craft. We focus so much on sketching and rendering and doing all of those things. Don't get me wrong. Those are important skills to have. But I find it interesting when you're talking about moving up the ladder. You didn't say, I was the best sketch artist in the studio. That's up for debate, whatever. It may or may not be true if that were the case. But
that was true.
what was that?
That was true.
Okay, there you go. You're the best one. So, I mean, that can play a factor in it too. But ultimately, you're part of a business. And we're going to talk about business a little bit more in just a bit. But so it's a business. So whoever's running the company needs to be able to feel like by bringing you up in the pay scale and having you move up, you are going to bring more back down the line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. It's an investment in you as a representative of the company, but sure, they've got to recognize that you can commercialize what they're producing. There's a lot of producers in the studio, designers, developers, right?
So the skills that you pointed out that helped you move up the ladder were all things that were, I don't know how to say it in a better, like they're monetized. They can almost have a dollar amount attached to them by him being able to close more of these deals because of how well he interacts with these clients and helps us sell those hundreds of millions of dollars worth of contracts and so forth. Yeah, he's worth investing in more because we want to keep him around. So, definitely food for thought and things to consider if you're already in the industry right now and you're trying to move up. Start asking yourself, what am I doing right now that's helping the company bring more revenue in? Yes, have better sketching skills, have better rendering, because those things sell too, but there's a number of other soft skills that kind of contribute to it. Is that a good summation of, of what your experience was like?
It is. I think one of the unique things about design is we deal with so many subjective, so much subjective material. Right?
Yeah.
Design is a point of view. It happens to be my point of view or the studio's point of view. And, so you're basically, you're taking what is creative and subjective and attaching it to, monetization pathways, right? Or, tools. And so there is a business side and a design side. I think that was probably one of my fortes, was to figure out both sides. Like, I could do great work, but if I couldn't convince somebody or inspire somebody to get super excited about it, to spend money on it so that they could put it in the market and make revenue, then it was going to stall out. Okay.
Yeah.
We're only chasing dollars. You can make stuff to just chase dollars, but you also have to inspire people, like to go like, wow, this is worth investing in, or this meets the criteria, but here's something that ratchets it up to another level.
Yeah.
And then you've got to inspire them, and they've got to believe you in the subjective nature of it. So if you can learn to blend those two together, that's the formula for design. Otherwise, it's art on one side, or it's just business and finance on the other.
Yeah.
Put them together, and that's where the magic's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Well, I do have another question for you on that same kind of trend of talking about moving up the ladder and being successful in it. What are the signs that in order to move up, it's time to move out?
For me, I realized if I was going to work this hard, I may as well do it for myself. You're flying around the world with multiple projects, juggling, having a hard time saying no because, designers are sort of promiscuous. Every project is cool and you want to own it and be part of it. And I was in some really awesome places, Frog and, Lunar, for example, and new cool things came in every day. You're like, yeah, give me that project. But after a while, you look at it and go like, okay, I can't do everything to the best of my ability. And I see some opportunities on the horizon. What do I want to do here? And I'm like, well, to make those come alive, I needed to leave and start my own company under my own design brand. And what we saw to start ASTRO, literally 94, dawn of the internet, moving out of CAD tools and rapid prototyping and, off of the boards, not losing that tangible side. But for us, it was sitting in Silicon Valley, and you could see that technology was just screaming into consumer markets. It was going to come in, so we okay, we got to go understand consumer markets. So we set up ASTRO to be more of the consumer advocate, the human advocate in the process. We dove into sporting goods and toys and furniture and just about anything that didn't have wires, bits, and batteries, and then try to immerse ourselves there. We also started in parallel to industrial design and brand communications.
Yes.
In supermarkets, you've got to have the two together. It's contextualizing everything you do. So we've had an awesome brand team, right, right there with us throughout the history. Anyway, long answer to your question, but that was the impetus of ASTRO.
That's good. Because you kind of bring up a few different things. I want to know. So, when you started, was it like a partnership, or were you a solopreneur when you were going out and you started ASTRO? Were you freelancing on your own? What's a little bit deeper, one level deeper on the story, the exodus of you from corporate America to starting on this company and doing it yourself? What was that like? Did you have a few clients lined up at the very beginning when you opened doors?
Well, interestingly enough, so ASTRO was set up to be about a 20% entrepreneurial equity-based, programs, right? Invented idea, about 80% client-based. Just spinning out of Lunar, I came out with a business partner at the time. Really good guy. We thought it was pretty complimentary. After about a year, we decided that, maybe design and, the way we were doing things wasn't his deal. So then I became the solo owner partner, but then I had some junior partners that I made at that time. So, that was sort of the beginning of it. And then I had to learn more about business because the business guy, left the building. So that was a challenge and a lot of fun. But that first project, a lot of people don't know this, is that it was an idea that we came up with, and we went to we targeted a client, potential client and partner, and said, hey, we think this is a good idea for your industry. Do you want to license this, partner with us? We'll do it for royalties. Just give us an advance, and that'll help catalyze our business.
Sure.
And it worked. And so
it worked.
The first year we were like, great, someone wrote us a check. Now we got to deliver. And it was based on, royalties and cash. In parallel, you're like, oh, wait, no one knows us. So we've got to build a design history as well beyond our portfolio. And so we started doing, consulting, get back to that air fuel mix, right? That 80-20, 80% consulting, 20% entrepreneurial. And then honestly, that stayed with ASTRO for, the entire history till today.
Wow. Well, that's inspiring. And I think that there's just something about designers that we kind of have that entrepreneurial itch where we'd like to, I don't know, a number of us that I've talked to, not all of them, but a lot of us would like to somehow develop and manufacture and sell a product that we've done ourselves and somehow have a hand in it throughout the entire process. But what would you say is the not so rosy side of going through that? Because it sounds fantastic. Ooh, I'm going to make this product. It was the thing that I did, and I'm going to be a part of it the whole time. I think that in your other interviews, you call it like hitting the bricks, the other, the 10-15% of the design part, and then the other 85-90% of grind, making it. Paint us a little bit give us a reality check of what that's like, and tell us like what your experience has been like with it.
How long is this podcast? Because this might turn into therapy really quickly.
Well, we try to cut it off and reserve it after about 1 hour. We give people about 15 to 20 minutes at the end for open Q&A, but it's as long as you want to stick around and as long as people are participating in the chats and so forth.
Good. Well, I'll try to answer your question a little bit. So just like you mentioned, designers, I think, are problem solvers and entrepreneurs and everything in between. And we all want to produce our own goods. I think, like most of us, myself included, it was like, oh, the idea is what it's all about. And, then I'm going to bring it to life. And then, I started the fire, someone else can tend it. And, that doesn't get the product to the market. And, and a lot of times it's like, well, someone else can do that. I'll go back and come up with more ideas. It's like, well, you need to get the first one sold and in the marketplace. And that requires a lot of other disciplines and people and your own discipline to stop just designing, but actually focus on and deliver a product and a good. And it took a few jump starts to figure that out. But realized early on, this was my role, and there's some really great people out there that could do the other pieces of it: finance, manufacturing, engineering, sales, et cetera. And so that took a little bit to figure out. But this, what you said, 15% is the bringing the idea to life. The other is busting rock, waking up every day, building a brand, maintaining it, expanding it, and those of you that are in companies already, you realize that that's the rhythm of it, right? It's, the next one, and maintenance. And well, I hope I get around to coming up with something new. I'm maintaining what's already there. So it's business and it's delivery of products and programs. It's also different than consulting. Okay. If consulting is, I don't know, playing golf, then producing products like basketball, they're different sports. You have some of the same, skill sets, but they're not the same. And, early on we blended them. Later on, we split them into two things so they could live and thrive on their own. And then the last part of that is today, man, compared to what it was today, there's so many avenues to jumpstart the ideas, develop them, and deliver them to the marketplace that you can do on your own. Like, man, I wish we had all the same tools 25 years ago when, we were our first products. So,
okay. Yeah, no, I think good stuff. It's like drinking from a fire hose. It's the truth. The reality of it is there's going to be so much more that goes onto it on the back end. So I do want to twist it just a little bit further in the sense, a lot of us know about your entrepreneurial endeavors and the stuff that you're doing, but what I'd like as a takeaway, your advice for those who are in the trenches right now. What are the things that, because I know if anybody reached out and talked with my wife, she would tell you that Russ is the guy who's got ideas all the time, all the freaking time. We'll be driving someplace with her in the car and just randomly be like, what would be cool? And then I'll tell her this thing. And I've had so many different business ideas, and when it comes to executing and doing things, there's been a few. I mean, obviously, I'm running and doing this right now, but I want to know, as you've gone through this similar cycle, because I'm sure you're same way, have ideas and things come along, and as you get going on them and get traction, I know that I personally hit a point where I start feeling a little disinterested, where I'm like, the fun of it at the beginning has now flickered out, and usually, with some more time and effort or some other new angle on it, that revives my motivation to get back in and do it again. Yep. What is your cure for getting disenchanted with your project baby that you started with?
Wow. That's something I've combated over the years, because like I am a classic fire starter, not fire tender. Like I like to get it going. I like to see what bring the idea to life, and then I want the clients to take it over and bring it home, and we'll stay part of that as long as we can. When you start doing that yourself, you realize, wait a minute, I'm the client and I've got to make it come home and and so you've got to flip your disinterested, maybe even ADD, distraction to something that says, no, I've got to, stay focused on this. Is not start another fire. Don't start 20 of them. You're going to be terrible at all of them. Then, get a couple things going. But then it's partnering with people that love to tend fires. Right? They love to refine them and make them, glow and be beautiful and protected and safe. And, and so find the people in your world that, want to be partnered with you to do that. And you can deliver your ideas to the marketplace. The problem outside of a consultancy is, is that, a lot of designers get tired of, or the ultra focus of diving deep on a certain, segment or, a channel, or vertical, whatever you want to call it. And it's healthy to do, though. If you can do that, you learn a lot more than, let's say, consultants that just sort of skip across the pond a lot, before they, on different things at different times. I'm kind of addicted to that. It's sort of fun, right? It's like, maybe that's over from school where everything is new every day. When we try to keep that as part of our environment at ASTRO, right? Like you come in and people recognize that and go like, oh, I could work on 3 different things in 3 different industries at the same day, with different clients. That's pretty addictive. It's a little schizophrenic at times, it's like, you're hearing voices and like, oh, that was the other client. But it's been great.
Yeah. And there's a lot to be said about, balancing all of the different things that you're going on. Kind of, as I was listening, just makes me think of the phrase, it's better to try not to just be putting on so many hats, a jack of all trades, but masters to none kind of a thing, or try and focus and not be too, as you put it, schizophrenic as you're going about things. I know that when you're running a consultancy, there are times when it's going to be cyclical where you've got feast and famine. I'm curious, well, to start things off right now, has it gotten to the point where you guys kind of have a self-fueling machine running? Or is there specific activities that you do for outreach to try and generate new clients?
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. Okay.
Yeah. So design consultancies, especially have a biorhythm to them. And it's related to the relationship you have with your client. This is according to me, I guess, but other people will recognize it. Where, like any relationship, a lot of times it's really exciting, maybe a little hotter and interesting and, all consuming in the beginning. And that's usually where, a lot of, 2 or 3 projects, maybe even 2 or 3 years, right? It kind of works that way.
Yeah.
And so how do you keep that relationship fresh with the client side? People maybe move and they go to other places. But they've learned through that what they can count on you for and what you're good at. And so sometimes you have to remind them of that, right? Like, here's what, we're good at. So relationships, that's 100% it. I mean, like people came and went, but we were with Nike for 18 years, like HP came and went, people came and went, and, we've been off and on, mainly on with them for over 20, and I'm just using those as a couple of examples. But that's because of the people and the effort to kind of reconnect and stay relevant to them. So sometimes it's leaning in and say like, well, here's what we can do, but what do you need us to do? Right. So that's if you can find the relationships that you want to invest in yourself, is really important to like craft it that way. Just remember, you're still expendable. You're outside the walls. So have multiple relationships kind of going on at the same time. I think that's how you keep a fluidity to your business. Because any 1 or 2 leave, well, hopefully you're doing the other effort of marketing and connecting and making new relationships happen that are bringing in 1 or 2 at the same time. Especially if you don't want to grow and just like blow up to be 50 or 100 people, where you've just got this massive machine that has to take on everything that walks through the door. Or big projects. It's not always cut and dried.
Sure.
But we prefer to stay smaller and nimble, but have redundancy, right? Have people that could back up other people so they could have a life or a vacation or get sick, if they, whatever happens in life. At the same time, if one client went out the door, you're not going to collapse. That's
exactly.
painful.
You don't have all your eggs in one basket.
So
I've seen
relationships.
businesses.
Like, what can you manage? Well, what does it take to drive your business? Like, how many do you need to maintain? And then constant drumbeat, and just constantly connect and share and connect. Because as in design, man, you're be irrelevant quite quickly if you don't work at it.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so continuing on this whole, we talked about the different categories we're now in the kicking tail phase, how to successfully, stay afloat in the industry and make waves. I want you to kind of tell me a little bit like branding, what the power of branding has done for you guys, because at the very beginning, if you look at some of your presentations last year, you made a presentation deck at IDSA, a similar deck that you did on the podcast that you were on with Spencer Nugent last year, almost to the day last year. As you made those presentations, you showed some of your very, very early stuff. Oh, here was this one thing that we put together, and your branding was on point back then. And it was obviously, and you've continued it through now. I mean, I can still see, well, let's just face it, most companies, when they start, they have one look and it shifts and changes a lot over time. But you guys kind of hit the nail on the head right at the beginning, out the gate, and you've stuck with it. And from what I can tell, I'm sure there's certain things that have changed. But what has that done for you guys as far as actively working on branding? Because I don't know, I feel like we have industrial designers, we do our thing, and then we kind of like, oh, and I know enough to be dangerous in graphics, and so I kind of do that. And so we don't have a whole team dedicated to that. We'll just take care of it ourselves. Yeah. You guys didn't do that. And I see by your face, you're like, So preach on that a little bit here and educate us on why you made those decisions and how it's impacted your business.
Absolutely. Well, a couple of things layered in there. So, there's the ASTRO design brand, which is how we thought about our firm as well. I'll be honest with you, I learned as much about that working at Frog Design as anywhere, and at Lunar for that matter, because it's very important that there's a character and an identity around the design brand itself. but in more in the application of branding and inclusion into our process and our business. I'll talk about that more than anything. Like, so if you come up with an idea, especially in consumer products, in order to say, on point with trend and relevant and even have a strong point of view, you need to put that into context. And the context is the branding. It's the naming, branding, positioning, packaging, out of box experience, all the, really all of the assets that are needed to launch a product into the market. Now it's digital, right? It's all physical, digital, video. I mean, like, it just sort of blossoms from there. But you can come up with an idea, which is fine, and products are early, and you have to stage it. The sooner you can start to put it into context, then in working with graphic designers who understood three-dimensionality and understand time and space of experience design, and then now we're into mobile and into the web and the video, like you get that hybridization, which has always been here, and it's been very fortunate for us because then our ID guys are a lot more sensitive, and our brand people are a lot more sensitive to those things. I really start cross-pollinating. And then you realize that we're sort of at this beautiful like epicenter of physical, digital experiences and branding. ID is tangible branding. It's there's a whole bunch of things, just like design, right? We throw everything in a bucket of design, or even industrial design. There's lots of good things in there. Branding is that same way. You could be identities, you could be digital experiences, you could be packaging, you could be retail, you could be video. Throw it all into branding. So now you've got these two buckets. Like, what are you taking stuff out of to create a visual image of what it is you want people to get really excited about that you can execute on, so that you can take that image and put it in the marketplace so it's relevant and creates revenue and and jobs and everything else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys have, branding is so much more than just a logo. I think that goes without saying. There's so much, there's emotion that gets tied to it, and it just goes without saying. There wasn't a moment, you can tell it wasn't an afterthought. Oh, hey, there's a few guys here who know how to work in Illustrator. Quick, let's put them on this thing right here, and we'll start saying that we offer branding. I mean, you guys have implemented motion graphics and 3D animation and all of that into your workflow, and just in your reel that we saw at the beginning of this broadcast showcasing your guys' work. Having that as part of your offering, has that been a major contributor to you guys winning some of the contracts and tipping things in your favor, as opposed to some of your competitors?
Absolutely. We can put things into context sooner. I mean, like, look, we're all humans first, right? And that human advocacy means you're a consumer that has feelings and emotions and needs entertainment and everything. And you start layering in the power of branding and communications early on. People feel like, oh, that is a great idea. And I see it in context. So now I've accelerated the process and the acceptance and the ownership. You put something in someone else's, like, I'm designing something for you and I put it in your name and your brand and your colors and your features, unless I'm changing all of that, of course. But all of a sudden I take ownership of that. I'm like, this is exciting. One thing I kind of glossed over just a second, I wanted to mention too, though, is look, design is design, and anybody can design other elements. Like, here's the great, key art, and here's the logo for my product. I mean, if you don't have access to somebody that you can partner with, do it. Don't not do it. But you can get another professional, just like you would say, like, oh, you know what? I can shoot photos, but man, if I got a really good photographer to shoot my stuff, like, this is going to be sweet, right? This is going to look really awesome in so many ways. So team up with a photographer to shoot your stuff. Don't just assume you can do it, even though you could, and it'll be fine. That's all you got. But recognize professionals are in these other categories. And, so we're doing the same thing. Like, we've added insights over time, right? Consumer insights and research and strategy, because we needed to be smarter about what we were intuitively doing. So we brought in some, really great talent there. On the back end, experience has exploded into, wait a minute, you guys don't just design it and you design my brand, but can you help me launch it? Can you help me deploy this to the marketplace? Sure. We'll come up with the vision for your launch video. We'll help you at retail. In fact, I'll go sit down and help your sales guys pitch the project if you want to. Like, the deployment is part of it, because guess what? We were there from the beginning when the DNA was set, and we've lived that along with the founders or the owners or the project directors. And, we have a certain amount of ownership to the work as well.
Yeah, you're tied to it. And I guarantee that your clients appreciate that, because let's face it, there's consultancies are almost a dime a dozen, where we come in, and they're offering, we can do design thinking, we'll do ethnography, we'll figure out all of the things to make sure that your product's fantastic. But then to say, hey, once we get it all, or even they'll go as far as to say, okay, and then we'll get your manufacturing all in order, and we'll get that done. So you've got yourself a physical product. But then what? I mean, I'll tell you what happens, because it happened to me. I decided I was going to kickstart a game, and I ran it on Kickstarter, got funded. I manufactured it. We fulfilled to all of our backers. I put it on Amazon, and we had sales go on for a little while and stuff, but then it eventually puttered out, mostly because, kind of like I told you, I have lots of ideas and I like starting fires, and it's hard to keep them going and whatnot. But now I have a whole ton of inventory. I have inventory that's sitting. So that's kind of a classic example of like, you can get a good product. I mean, I'm biased, but it's a good game. People enjoy it and playing it. But without execution and stuff, then what are you left with? Well, you just boxes of crud that don't ever go anywhere and don't sell, and you don't want to drop the ball and leave your clients in that kind of a position. So to somehow have more to it and say, okay, and not only are we able to do that, but we can pitch for you and help your sales professionals do this and that. Definitely very impressive. All right. Well, real quick, we appreciate you all of that you've shared with us up already. We're going to take a quick break and come on back, and we'll open up the lines for our Q&A segment here with Brett Lovelady. Stick around. All righty. Thanks for sticking with us, guys. We were sent in a question to start things off with you, Brett. First one being here from my friend Jack Marple, who's a fan of yours. The two of you, I guess, have run into each other in studios and so forth back in the day. He sent me a message. He said that he knows that you grew up, quote unquote, as a designer in early days of personal computing in Silicon Valley. What did you learn from being in such close proximity to all of those early pioneers? Did you have any sense then of what industrial design would turn into today?
Wow, it's a good question. Yeah, I mean, looking back, but also even then, we're kind of on the heels of some really great Valley firms. The Frog Apple story had just sort of, cemented itself. IDEO hadn't quite formed, but the computer side of things, that's where I jumped into right out of school. It had a lot to do with my process, which was not to just be design for design's sake, but to actually have a strategy and, hone, if you will, those skills of the craft. Because you can design fantasy stuff all day, but if you got to hang out with some engineers, they're going to go like, yeah, but I can't make that. If they go like, yeah, that's really cool, that's inspiring, and I can make it, you've just sort of leapfrogged into, production orientation and potential for success, right? And I learned that in Silicon Valley with some great mentors, some great guys that went on to be clients and have been lifelong friends. So I feel really fortunate in that regard. And honestly, I live about 2 miles from where that was to today, right between HP and Apple campuses so it had a big impact on my life, as well as, my design philosophy. And I think even just the credibility, right? We're ground zero. And what I look back now and go like, wow, talk about the renaissance of industrial design, right? It happened right here. And, you see IDEO form, you see Frog take on it's all different firms and different ways. And companies like, us and Lunar and Ammunition and New Deal and, places that were super fortunate to be at the right place at the right time and attracting a talent from the whole world, right? This was a magnet, for a long time. Great design going on in other places, no doubt about
Yeah.
it. But it's been a special experience.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, one question that he specifically said was like, did you have any sense then of what industrial design would turn into today, being surrounded by some of those visionaries? Because didn't you guys like RC cars in the back alleyway and get in Steve Jobs' way and stuff like that while you in the early days of Astro?
Yeah, I met Steve early on with some friends at Frog at the last days of Next Computer, and he was across the street. And there's always that aura of you can fail and succeed and do it again and again, and that sort of permeates the valley. And I think
Sure.
that industrial design was always at the heart of that. I was fortunate enough that I was hanging out with some other designers that were actually consultants for the company I was at. And it was, ID2 and Matrix and David Kelly design. And everybody's like,
Hmm.
who are they? Well, they became IDEO. And so we got to see the
Yeah.
formation. Tim Brown and I were like right out of school watching this whole thing go down, hanging out with, Bill Mogridge in the day, David Kelly, or, hanging out with, Hartmut at Frog. And, so we were sort of, you know, lucky to be sort of the
You
next
were
wave.
ripe in the right connected place.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it had that feeling of that it could be that. And sometimes you don't know it when you're in it, but
Sure.
we kind of knew like this was something special going on here. And, I think it's, looking back, Stanford had a lot to do with that, Berkeley, Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
but also San Francisco's amazing international history. So,
Yeah. Very cool. We were sent in another question asking you, how has the design process, in parentheses, the actual process of delivering design solutions to clients, changed over the course of your career? And how has Astro evolved over time to meet the needs of those clients?
wow, that's a good question because it has.
Yeah.
And, I guess as the old guy in the room, these days, it's sort of like, yeah, that's really great, but you developed the whole thing on a screen and you only 3D printed it at the last minute. Like you've got to deal with the physical reality of scale and size and proportion. And that's, that goes back to
Yeah.
sketching and modeling. And, I know you're a believer in that as well. So you've
Yeah.
got to figure out how to blend those two things. And then the thing always pains me is like, you do all this work, like you blood, sweat, tears, you work really hard to come up with like the presentation and the work. And then you're satisfied with just hitting send. Okay, here it goes. I'll send you a PDF,
Yeah.
And like, wait a minute, present that work, right?
Yeah.
Like value it yourself, right? Just tell them, say, I'm gonna get on a plane and I'm gonna come present it to you. Yeah, I could send you a PDF, but I'm not going to because you need to see this, the physical, my emotion, full screen in a room, whatever it is, right? And then, don't just rely on digital. Even then, like physical artifacts, make models, okay? Take samples, tear stuff apart and throw it on the table so people can feel it. And, sketching is one of the ID superpowers. The other one's modeling and physical goods, right? So do everything you can. Now, what's cool about it, like if it's big and you can't take it, it's like, well, get inside of it and have someone take a video, right? Like, everybody's, streaming everything these days. Like, I wish we'd have had that 20 years ago because we could have probably saved a few extra trips too. But, like, what are the tools you have to communicate the design and get people emotionally, attached to what you're doing so that they will continue to, make decisions and fund it or fuel it or collaborate. And anyway, here, but
No, that's good. And so I just want to make sure, like, kind of as I listen to that, takeaway being ways that you guys have had to be nimble and change over the years is the approach that you've done. Always wanting to be communicate the emotion and the passion behind the design work that you've done. We don't just like kick out PDFs and say, here, the work will speak for itself. Doing anything and everything you can to bring that emotion that you've put into it and make it clear to your clients. And that, with the change in technology and stuff, has opened up many different avenues for you. But I think that's great. And there are other creatives that have said the exact same thing. And Michael DeTulo was on the show, and he said the exact same thing. One of his kind of his Achilles heels at the beginning was to just do his work as a junior designer and like lay it out on the table. And they're like, Michael, like tell people what you
Yeah.
did, like present this. Okay. Oh, okay. I got another question sent in from Sergey. Question being successful in the industry and industrial design space, what does the future look like for you? Is there an exit strategy that you're looking to keep, or is there an exit strategy, or are you looking to keep on going in this trade forever? Like, when's the end for you? Are you gonna keep designing till you die?
Well, yeah, I guess that's sort of like, is it a professional title or a calling, right? Are you
Yeah.
like, I identify as a designer, which is to me is a problem solver and a creative person. So I hope to, die with those boots on. That's part of it. But I think the next steps, for me is also like enabling and engaging other people to bring ideas to life. I love that part of it.
Sure.
You probably know, like this last year, Astro teamed up with PA Consulting, some folks out of London that are all about innovation, and they're building a presence here in Silicon Valley in the US. So we decided that we were going to invest Astro into their platform of engineers and scientists and chemists and, really smart business people to bring, even more impactful work to life in what we do. And part of that is like, a lot of the projects that we're involved in, you guys are involved in, are more complex than they used to be, right? So,
Sure.
we've done a ton in wearables, for example. Well, to bring a wearable to market now, you've got to have expertise in so many different areas of technology and user experience and demographic, appropriateness and all kinds of,
Sure.
social stigmas and on and on and on, plus all the digital. You need more people. And so we've always relied on our network, but we needed to get closer to solve some of the bigger problems that we're being requested to do. So that was one of the reasons we joined them. And then a more global presence. We've been fortunate to attract a lot of clients from around the world. But our friends at PA, based out of London for so many years, and now throughout the globe, have all this other connectivity. So the next, I'll say the next, decade for me and Astro is about bringing what we have and magnifying it on this platform. So you'll see Astro, around and hopefully having even more impact as we size and scale and add new disciplines that the world needs.
Yeah. Well, Brett Lovelady, thank you so much for joining us on The Variable. It's been a pleasure to have you on here. We wish you continued success as Astro continues to grow and provide meaningful solutions to its clients and everything. Stay in touch, and we wish you the best of luck in your future moving forward.
I will, man. Thanks, Russ. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, have a good one, okay?
Brother, take care.